What does the word Renaissance mean to you? I think of the word as not just a word, but a movement, a cultural rebirth, an igniting. Our guest today is all about building a community of entrepreneurial women that are embracing and embarking on their renaissance. She shares in a transparent and vulnerable way the highs and the lows of her entrepreneurial journey that she's been living for the last 10 years. And some of the most amazing lessons that she will talk us through is the entrepreneurial journey zigs and zags, no matter whether you've been doing it for a year or 10 years. But you just have to keep going. You have to remember why you are doing this. You keep putting that one step in front of the other to go forward and make progress. Our conversation today is raw, it's honest, and I'm so appreciative of that true, authentic conversation that we're able to have with Sydney Dozier. She is building this amazing Renaissance movement of entrepreneurs. She is building this amazing entrepreneurial Renaissance movement here in the Nashville area. Pour your favorite cup of coffee or tea, and let's sit and listen to the conversation with the Renaissance Queen, Sydney Dozier. On today's episode, we have Sydney Dozier. Hi, Sydney. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have a fellow Nashvilleian entrepreneur on the call today. And thank you for being here. Share with our listeners today a little bit about you and your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We're doing a pod swap, which is so fun. You're coming on my show soon, and I'm so excited. Yeah, so I'm Sydney. I'm the founder of kind of what I like to call the Renaissance kind of ecosystem. So there's a couple moving pieces to it, but the foundationally Renaissance Marketing Group, which is a full service social media content creation, social media management agency based in Nashville. We service clients across the country, and that really kind of is my starter to entrepreneurship and kind of that whole world. Started the company in 2014, the tail end of 2014, after coming off of a 6-month sabbatical, where I, 6 months before starting Renaissance, was in a really high powerful position at a museum here in Nashville, the Johnny Cash Museum. Some of you might have heard of it, which was an incredible experience. It was really my first experience in, working in marketing as like someone getting paid to do marketing, because I was kind of interning before that and actually moved to Nashville to be a singer-songwriter. So when that first dream didn't come to fruition and I kind of like traded in my guitar for a keyboard, if you will, I just really knew that I was such a creative person, and like creativity and having a job that allowed me to be creative really fit that skill set. And I really wanted to be able to transfer that from the music side of things. So kind of started interning at different music magazines on Music Row, wasn't paid, was working multiple jobs. I was a tour guide at one point at the Country Music Hall of Fame, which was, I say, the best job I've ever had, because I just adore Nashville. I adore the tourism industry, and anyone that comes to Nashville that's super excited about it, I'm like super jazzed, and had so much fun in that. Worked and sold cowboy boots. So I know so many random pieces of knowledge around cowboy boots, which is kind of funny. And landed into the Johnny Cash Museum, which again kind of gave me my start and allowed me to learn the tools of the trade of social media marketing. I started there folding t-shirts and found out really quickly that they didn't have a social media presence, and they were about to open this major museum. And I thought, man, this is a huge opportunity. Facebook for Business was just coming to fruition in 2012. And I knew that from my internships, and I knew it was a really powerful tool to get, the awareness out about a business. So I, went to the museum founders and I was like, look, I know I'm just slinging t-shirts, making $7.50 an hour, but can I manage your social media? And they were like, wow, we really didn't consider doing social media. Like, if you can believe that in a 2012 world, there were business owners that weren't considering it as an option. And so I was like, there's a white space opportunity for me here. And they thought, sure, we'll trust this little girl to do that. She seems really passionate and interested, and we'll see how this goes. And I think it was like within a month, we went from like 0 to 25,000 followers on the Facebook page. And by the time I left, we, had like over 150,000. And, when you have a name as prolific as Johnny Cash, it's definitely a lot easier to be a social media marketer. And you're, taking pictures of his memorabilia, jewelry he gave to June Carter. I mean, gosh, his instruments, his blue suede shoes. Like, we had literally everything from an archive standpoint that we were able to photograph. And it was amazing. I definitely cut my teeth in the industry doing that, and also did billboards and, all throughout the whole realm of marketing, not just digital. But I got really burnt out really quickly. And I think, the singer-songwriter in me was always there, and in that free spirit of like just wanting to do my own thing and wanting to be my own girl and not really have someone telling me what to do. I'm a firstborn girl in my family, and I feel like I'm a little bossy. I'm a little bit like, I just want to, dance to the beat of my own drum type of thing. And so I decided to move home to Atlanta, where my family lives. My parents still live where I grew up. And I put my house on Airbnb that I had bought when I was working at the museum. And that really took off because it was early days of Airbnb in Nashville. My house was a condo 15 minutes from downtown. So it just did really well and was able to give me financial backing to kind of live and just exist for 6 months. And I was just sharing this story with a girl in my office yesterday. And I just said, the 6 months I took when I left the museum to starting Renaissance was just the most monumental period of my entire life. It's actually really crazy, but I left that job on August 8th, 2014, and met my now husband August 8th, 2015. And, prior to that, time and that season that I gave myself, I was again, really burnt out. I was, I was overweight. I was like, my mental health was just a zero. I feel like I was a shell of a human. And when I actually committed to me and taking time and just saying no to working, I started on this journey of self-love, which was such a strange, faraway concept to me previously. And so introduced what that meant for me personally and gave me, I think it was God that, allowed me to have that space so that I could have the idea to start Renaissance Marketing Group.
Such an amazing story, Sydney, and I appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency in this. And I think what's so important is, for a lot of our listeners, they may be starting their entrepreneurial journey. They may be kind of in that first year, or they may be, down the road. And where I want our conversation to go now is to talk about, it's been 10 years. And so does it get easier, or is it still hard? And what do those pivots look like for you as a woman entrepreneur that, has had a very successful agency for 10 years? And, let's be really honest with our listeners about what these journeys and pivots are like.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I think 10 years, we were kind of chatting before we started recording, and you said that. And I was like, man, this is year 10. This is like officially, as of December, that will be 10 years of me being like not working for another person, like me actually just working for me, myself, and I, which is so crazy because it has felt like 10 years, but then it also hasn't. I feel like I am such a stronger person because of this 10 years, but also I feel weaker than ever, if that makes sense. And I feel like your audience is entrepreneurial, so I feel like that resonates to people. You go through waves. You go through periods where you feel like you're on top of the world. I said this to my husband last night. I was like, I felt like in January of this year, I was on top of the world. And in this current moment, if I'm being really honest with you, I don't. I even was like, I hope I can inspire this audience today on this podcast, because I am in a season of just feeling just feeling discouraged. As an agency owner, it's really common to have turnover in your business. It's really common, I think, probably in any industry. I can only speak to what I know, but in my world, and I have lots of friends that are agency owners, they're like, that's just so part of it. You do typically hire folks right out of college, and you have people kind of in a more green scenario, and they come to you and they learn so much, and this is their first real job, and they take those tools and they move on. And I think that's so hard for me. I think the management piece of it is the thing that I love so much, but I also hate so much because it breaks my heart. I have these women primarily that come into Renaissance, and I fall in love with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so honored. Anyone that wants to work for my company, I'm so humbled by, because I'm just like, you could work anywhere. You could literally go anywhere, and you chose to come to my little pink side of the world, and it's looks pink and fun, but it's also really fucking hard. And and they just pour so much into it, and we just build this relationship, and they build the relationships with the clients, and then it's hard to see that kind of just come to a really halting stop. And that's right when you feel like you're getting somewhere, when then things like that happen. And that's really what happened to me throughout Q1 of this year. It was like I started the year, as most people do, like, this is our year. This is it. Year 10, 2024 is going to be the year. And then, full transparency, like I just had a call with my accounting team yesterday, and they're like, we didn't hit our, revenue goal for Q1. And that was such a bummer for me, but I am able to reflect back on that and kind of look at why that is. And I know that it's because we've had some team shifts. We've had lots of unprecedented events and circumstances and things happen within the business that have held me back from putting on my sales cap and, really driving the revenue. And I think it's important to be able to look back and kind of give yourself that grace that, like, you're not always going to hit every single goal. And so the piece there, and the most important takeaway is we just can't give up, and everyone else that is an entrepreneur has been there where they haven't hit revenue goals, and they've maybe hit lofty goal or set lofty goals. And, you're able to kind of be like, maybe that was a little higher than what we should have, done. But yeah, that's kind of where I am.
So as you're hitting this resiliency stride, right? Because as we talk about within the GST factor life of being confident and inquisitive and imaginative and present and resilient and influential, and as entrepreneurs, we're constantly needing all of them, but there are different seasons that we're in, right? We're in seasons of doing, or we're in seasons of being, but there's also these different seasons of these attributes. As you are in this resiliency season, what is your biggest lesson that you want to share in this pivot?
Oh gosh. Okay. Biggest lesson. And this is where I'm like, gosh, I'm so like in it, but I want to inspire, and I want to encourage, and I want to motivate. I feel like for me, it's what I said to myself last night when I was in this headspace, this negative headspace. Which is wild because I am such a glasses half full person. I think that's where I've had a lot of like confusion in the last weeks, because I'm like, no, I am Polly Sunshine. Like, that is truly who I am. But I was just in this mood. And I think what I just kept telling myself is just keep going. Like, maybe this is a harder season comparatively than other ones that we had in 2023. My brother Walker, that was working with me for almost 6 years, just, left the company. And that was deeply painful for me, because it felt like he was, a partner in this. He didn't have any stake in Renaissance or equity share or anything like that. But it really felt like we were kind of both having backpacks full of rocks, walking up this Mount Everest together, hand in hand, of like, this is so hard, but we're doing it together. And I think I am such a person that doesn't want to do business alone. I never wanted to be a solopreneur. I really like team. And I think that's the piece where I just am feeling isolated and alone, And so, but what is it worth? Like, what is all of this blood, sweat, and tears? Like, where is why do we keep going as entrepreneurs? And it's like, I have to think through, well, I don't want to work for someone else ever again, period. I will never do that. I will literally, do anything to prevent that, because the freedom, right? So I think just weighing out like the pros and the cons and just listing out the positives and the things that you are so immensely grateful for, like you and I talked about earlier. Like you said, think about that woman in the room at the Renaissance Women's Summit. That was so beautiful and so well said. And I need to remember that, remembering why you started, remembering, your why behind it all. And I feel like for me, it really is, there's no going back. So the only direction I can do is just go forward. And I feel like that's probably my biggest lesson for resiliency.
Beautifully stated. And thank you again for just opening your heart and sharing with our listeners, because I think that, this story it resonates for so many today. And, I think when we are the solopreneur, chosen or not chosen in that moment, there comes into our sphere, into our universe, others, right? And we talk about within the GSD Factor life, we have our GSD Factor clan. We have for our personal lives, we also have our GSD Factor insiders board, which is more of that professional, personal board that we have. But I think that there's an additional component here that we've talked about, is that sense of community and those people that we can call or text or pick up the phone and just cry, laugh, or just share how the day has gone. So I think let's lean into that a little bit more. Let's talk about, who are those communities for you? What has been the gift of having those communities during the good times, but also during the bad times?
I love that. The first person that comes to my mind is my mom. I know, I feel like that's so everyone's go-to, like my mom, but like, I mean it to my core. She was there the moment that I had the idea to start this company. And so she's seen every moving piece of it. She is actually the person that helped me name the company when I was like, what should we name it? I don't want to be Sydney, I was Robinson at the time. I don't want to be Sydney Robinson marketing. That's so like, no. And she was like, oh my gosh. And she ran and got this like art history book. She loves art history. She's kind of a history nerd. She would love hearing me say that because it's true. And she just opened it up and there was this page and it said the Italian Renaissance. And it was this gorgeous, like Michelangelo, like painting. It was so stunning. And she and I just both were like looking at each other. We were like, oh my God, that's it. And that was so like before Beyonce made the word Renaissance sexy and the whole thing. It was not really cool. No, everyone was like, what do you mean Renaissance? Like, you're like, what do you do? It really wasn't cool for the longest time. I actually thought about changing it for a few years because I was like, it's the longest word. No one knows how to spell it. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but I have probably called my mom every single week since starting the business, because I think even though she doesn't have business, social media, agency owner, entrepreneurial, really, expertise, she has human and people expertise. And I think all of my problems stem from people. And, that has been just having that sounding board of like, this is going on and we've got kind of this office drama, or we've got this, or we've got this client situation going on, just that for me has been so helpful because I've been able to 100% be myself. Like I don't have to be this Sydney Renaissance, person, character. I can really be the actual me. And so I would say that's number one for me. And then, the other side, I'm a member of Brain Trust, which is, for your Nashville listeners, an incredible community in Nashville for women entrepreneurs that really supports women hitting the 1 million mark in business. And the entire premise of the organization is getting women into these groups that's called a vault. And it's called a vault because it's a secret, honestly, like a secret society. You have to sign paperwork that whatever you say in your vault and whatever someone else says, like you cannot speak about it. It's like this, it's the closest I've ever gotten to like a sorority because I didn't finish college, but it's been incredible because the women that you're paired with in the vault, it's very strategic with how they pair you, and they pair it based on your revenue and based on kind of your industry. And, if you have a team and the problems that you've experienced, so that they're pairing you with people who have been there, done that. And for me, that's been huge. I have a gal in my vault who's incredible, and she owns a PR agency, and she's been in business for a really long time. So like she understands that, and we have a lot of the similar issues. So again, I mean, yeah, the communal piece for me, I feel like it's been in the last year that I've really honed in on that. And I do think when you're in the earlier stages of building your business, it can be harder to carve out the time to make sure that you're, committing to things like that. It really is a commitment. I mean, it's 4 hours a month, and it's like, you can't be on your phone. It's just 4 hours of kind of going through this framework that's very proven to support you in your journey. And so you really have to commit, and that's hard. It's hard if you have a little bit of ADD, which I do. But I'm so committed to this journey. I'm so committed to this business. And so I do feel like that's a huge tip that I would give to anyone is find your tribe.
Speaking of tribe, you have another tribe of Renaissance Women's Summit. So share with our listeners a little bit about that, because that is actually where we were first introduced at the 2024 Renaissance Women's Summit that was at the Wondery, of which we're both mentors to the Wondery entrepreneur and innovation students there at Vanderbilt. But talk to us about what is the Renaissance Women's Summit, and what is your vision of that, and talk about, really talk about the success that it's been, because you celebrated your third this year.
Amazing. Yeah, it was actually our fourth, if you can believe that, because we did Charleston in December, which is a whole other level of crazy I have, that we're trying to take it to different cities. We are taking it to different cities. So the summit, I feel like the things that I've been doing in the last, since 2022 is when we did our first summit. So, the last couple of years of my entrepreneurial journey, I've finally kind of been stepping into doing things that like really are close to my heart and that are dream big moments for me that I've always wanted Renaissance to evolve into. And so the summit is the thing in my career I am the most proud of, because it is truthfully like cultivating women in one room, in one space, on one very long day, where we're all able to have these conversations that you and I are having right now, where we're all able to speak our truth, be real, and be surrounded by other women that need this conversation. I do think you get to that point in entrepreneurship where it's like a lifeline to have other women who have gone through it. And I feel like it's the season I'm in right now. You were like motivating me before this call. We constantly need these motivating refreshers of like, man, like you said, she did it. Like she's doing it. And I hadn't ever been to a conference where, it was it was all women. I had never, until like we were doing it, I had never been to an all women's conference. I had been to conferences that were, co-ed and had, incredible women speakers, but I had never been to a conference that was like fun and really like lots of photo ops and like fun food and like fashion and fun, all female owned, like all of it, women, where the speakers were just so incredible and so committed. And every single speaker that we had on that stage, we had over 27 speakers. They all, when we asked them, it was a hell yes. And those are the women I look for with this summit, the women that are like, oh, this is your mission to inspire other women to live their Renaissance life. That's going to be a hell yes for me. And I feel like as we go, that's more where I'm gravitating towards. And again, having these conversations and just leaning in, getting vulnerable, just like figuring out the tools to get us away from our fears, I feel like is a really, really big piece. And really working on mindset. That's, I feel like Tiffany Napper she was our opening speaker this year, and she just took us to church with her kind of soft CEO era, keynote about just like, we can do this hard journey softly. We don't have to kill ourselves to accelerate and to live out our dreams and live out our Renaissance lives. And, that's the mission. So we're taking the conference to Austin on October 10th. And we are really just trying to spread the Renaissance good word around the globe.
Well, I have been to a lot of conferences in my career. And what I really loved about your Renaissance Summit was that immediate connection and community, right? Even though I maybe only knew one, maybe two people in the room, it didn't feel like that. And
Wow.
what you were also you were able to kind of take what you needed in those moments, right? You had this amazing agenda, jam-packed day,
Jam-packed
27 speakers,
So many
like
speakers.
nuts.
Yeah, nuts.
But what was amazing was the right people were in the room. And as those of us that were sitting there, you could take what you needed. And I think that that's what's so important in those conferences is being able to go, this is what I need in this moment. This is the reason I was here. This was the reason that I made the time and I made that investment in myself. And I think that that's the other really important message for those entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, especially female founders, is you have to make space for you. Self-care, we talk about self-care is so important for our mental and physical, spiritual beings. But as a solopreneur, you also have to do that self-care at a professional level. And that means networking and building community and hearing from others and being inspired and finding those opportunities. And so thank you for launching the Renaissance Women's Summit, because I think it's such a gem here in our Nashville entrepreneur ecosystem. And, and as you are continuing to take this all over, I, encourage our listeners to follow along and if you can, and see if they can come, because it's such an empowering and encouraging experience.
Thank you. I need you to put that in transcription so we can put it on our new website we're working on.
You got it, girl.
Great. You're the best. That's so good.
So now my favorite question of this season is, what is Sydney powerfully choosing in 2024?
I love that question so much. And I want to be I really want to be real with how I answer it, because I do feel like my question, it would be different if it was January. But we are on this ever-changing journey, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, I think I'm choosing hope right now. I'm really choosing hope because I believe, especially if we are leaders, we owe that to our people to show up for them every single day, no matter how we feel inside. And I think this week that has been a big thing on my heart of they're showing up every single day to do a job, and your expectation of them is to, show up with joy. One of our core values is find the joy. And so how are you as the leader living out your core value? How are you living out the find the joy? That is something you really hold them to. So reminding yourself that and holding on to the hope. I'm, a woman of faith. I believe that, if we have a business and if we have an idea to have an innovation, that was placed on our hearts for a reason. And there's a reason that we've chosen the hardest career path, in my opinion, possible, because it's just so mentally challenging, But I am that's what I am looking to do throughout the rest of 2024 is just have hope, harness hope, and keep going, being hopeful.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think what's really resonating for me is that, again, as we're in these various seasons, whether it's this season of keep showing up no matter what, and having to activate that resiliency muscle more times than we thought was even possible, it is that there is hope. And there is that glimmer, and it's going to continue to get brighter and brighter. One of the things that I love to do with, my mentees or my clients is I encourage them to write a letter to their future selves. And I'm sharing this with you because I think it would be, an interesting exercise for you in this season. But I'm also wanting our listeners who may be walking a similar journey to you today, Sydney, that, write your future self that letter. And you can recall and retrospect about, hey, listen, January was going to be this year. This is where I'm sitting now in May, but here is where I want to be by the end of 24. And, give yourself that grace, give yourself that encouragement and that inspiration. And the biggest thing I tell people is read that letter, reread it on a regular cadence. And there will be little nuggets of encouragement and inspiration that continue to drop into your lap when you need them most. And at the end of, whenever you date that future letter, you go back and you look back at that period of time, be it 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is, and you pause and celebrate and congratulate yourself on the journey that you've come along on and the things that you have accomplished. And you talked about being that half glass full, and sometimes just pausing for that letter and giving it space. It puts it down on paper, but it also gives us those moments as we're going through these journeys.
I love that. And I think that exercise is brilliant. I think there's something so healing about just writing in general, actually writing down, actually having that. I don't know if it's the quiet or, you're doing it where there's no one around. I don't know what it is about that, but I think that is so beautiful. And I definitely need to do that because we need that. We need it. We need it from ourselves. We need those reminders. And man, I think it's whatever I can get my hands on that helps me get through, I am so in to do.
Well, Sydney, thank you for sharing so transparently and vulnerably today. We're so excited to see where Renaissance Marketing Group and the Renaissance Summit goes in the future. And, our GSD listeners, we're cheering you on, and we're looking forward to seeing the great things that are going to come out of your resilient season. But thank you for sharing with us. And we hope that this has been such an encouragement, Sydney, to you, but also to our listeners today.
Amen. I'm all about it and hope that they had some takeaways. So thank you. Thank you for having me. What an honor.
Yes. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us as always. And don't forget to get shit done.
Thanks for listening to the GSD Factor podcast. If you liked this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, where you can also find previous episodes. Let's also connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you're looking for more information on the GSD Factor, visit us at gsdfactor.com. And always remember to GSD, get shit done.